OMG. We did it.
What in the world? What was going on?
I don't know. So it just said, I mean, I feel like a total boomer right now. Like someone's gonna be like, okay, move over Gen Xers and millennials and or make way for the millennials. For the record, I'm a zennial, but okay. So, we're 34 minutes late, but who cares? We're talking about death. Like death can wait, right?
Oh, it totally can.
Okay. Well, see, all right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there. We had to let Jesus take the wheel and get us here, but we are here. And I am so super psyched to have you. And thanks for all right, well, I'm talking to everybody like they know who you are. So, hi, Kimberly. How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. And this is my first time. So if I probably have done something wrong. So, but yeah, I finally, your link helped.
All right. So Kimberly C. Paul. What does the C stand for?
Christine.
Christine. All right. Awesome. All right. So now we know the full you. And, I have to tell you, I was so excited to talk to you about, everything you've done, your journey to where you are. And then I read a little bit about your bio, how your grandma used to work at Belk's. And I was like, hold up. We're going to talk about Belk's because I grew up going to Belk's. And then the cottage cheese and pineapple.
That was my great grandmother.
That was your great grandmother. Okay.
Isn't that crazy? And that's the things that I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, she was such a big influence in my life. And so many people don't get to experience great grandmothers, but I've been really fortunate. So yeah, I miss her every day for sure.
I know. I was talking about my grandmother's cooking to somebody the other day, and it's just these memories that we associate with food. And if literally if I had my final meal on death row, hopefully I'll never go to death row, but you never know. But if I did, it would be my grandmother's breakfast that she would make. And it's so simple, but it's the smells, it's the taste, it's the ambiance, it's everything. So,
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, 34 minutes late, and we're gonna get this party started.
And the crazy thing is I'm always late. I'm always late.
Well, that's perfect because I've started another Instagram page in honor of my late mother, and it's called Late to Her Own Funeral. Because my mother was late to everything, and we used to say she would be late to her own funeral. So we purposefully made her late to her own funeral. We brought her urn in about halfway through the funeral. So
that's amazing. I know. That's amazing.
So you're always late. So this is just par for the course, right?
Yeah, it's just if I could mess something up, especially when it comes to technology, I'm pretty clumsy in my life. So I push a lot of buttons and don't know what they do. So.
Well, my first post, so I'm this Instagram that I've started in honor of my mother. My first post it's very apropos because one of her things was that you could F up a 2-car funeral. So I don't know if you've ever heard that one, but
no.
I mean, you and I could F up a 2-person Instagram.
Let me tell you, and I don't even know how I'm even here. I really don't.
You did it. Okay, we're here. And so we have so much to unpack, but I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thanks.
And for everybody who's just joined us, this is Kimberly Paul from Death by Design podcast, the Live Well, Die Well book tour.
Something like that.
Former TEDx speaker. You were on SNL.
I worked for Saturday
You
Night
work
Live.
for
Yeah.
SNL,
This space is a podcaster space. So, you know.
yeah. And then, like, I think I also had a little bit of, I was like, wait a minute, we got to talk about Dawson's Creek. When you were like, I worked on Dawson's Creek. I was like, well, you know what? Let's just talk all about that instead of death.
Well, well, you know, I never did really work for them.
Okay.
But it sort of, it was my aspiration to move to Wilmington, and yeah, Dawson Creek was being filmed, and I've always been a part of the film industry. And yeah, so, but I wound up in hospice. So
Okay, so let's jump into that. So I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Rachel Donnelly with Black Dress Consultants. I am the founder and CEO of this fine firm, and we market ourselves as end of life and after loss consultants. So we help individuals and families manage the unavoidable tasks of after loss. But in our weekly Instagram live, which was 30 minutes late, but here we are. We talk through a specific pain point theme of after loss. So I'm so excited to have Kimberly here. So you started out in the film business. How did you go from there to working in hospice?
yeah, you know, I stumbled into it. It's really silly. My grandmother had passed away with breast cancer, and I had just moved to Wilmington, and you know, I was just going to volunteer for hospice, and ended up in this crazy circle of interviews, and was just really fortunate to think that this was going to be a temporary gig. And every time I think that something's going to be temporary, the universe sort of kind of plucks me in the forehead, and so it began my journey, which is now 22 years in palliative and hospice care. So yeah, and that's, you know, the reason I moved to Denver, helping a hospice right here in Denver, Colorado, to rebuild, and really excited. You know, I've never experienced snowfall in May, but we did last night. So it's unbelievable.
Gosh.
It's unbelievable.
That's right, because you're from North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know we're not used to that type of snow, and snow in May is just, yeah,
I don't know why people live here. I mean, what's going on? But they say that be patient. The summer and the fall are magnificent, and so I'm really looking forward. But I mean, I should have known. You know, I moved here in January, so I thought we were gonna see a little bit of snow, but we have had record-breaking snowfall this winter in Denver. So
it's good for the ski resorts. So
exactly.
yeah, they're super excited. Those Epic and Icon pass holders are super duper psyched this year.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about, because you and I were talking about this, your first day in hospice, your first day working in hospice, and how that sort of set the trajectory for.
Yeah, you know, with all things, you kind of shadow people, and I was asked to ride along with a chaplain, and Jim, and he was, you know, I was thinking, you know, this is going to be like my first time, you know, being around someone that knows they're dying. And I was thinking, you know, all the wisdom, like what I wanted to soak it up. And you know, Jim told me on the way over, like, look, just don't say anything, just observe. And so I was like, yeah, all right, no problem. And as soon as we got out of the car, the screen door popped open, and there was like 4 or 5 people on the front lawn meeting us halfway, and they were like, please do not tell our mother that she's dying. We don't think she's able to handle that kind of information. And I was like, oh, whoa, this is intense. And the chaplain sort of was like, hey, we're just here to have a conversation, and your mom will most likely lead it. And I guess with Jim's reassurance, they let us in, and we went up to see the patient, and and the lady was so cute. She was so tiny. She goes, you know, before you get all Jesus on me, you know, I've got something to tell you. And I was, and she was like, lean in. And so we leaned in.
You're like,
And
okay.
yeah, and she goes a little bit closer. And before I knew it, she was saying, please do not tell my sons and daughters that I'm dying. And
Wow. So then you're keeping a secret from two sets of people. I mean,
yeah, it was this some really unreal sort of twilight moment in my life, because what was sad about it was the children knew mom was dying and the mom knew she was dying, but there was a lot of conversations. They were trying to protect one another from those taboo conversations. And you know, I so wanted just to be like, you know, hey kids, come on up here. She knows she's dying, you know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it was really self-evident of what working in hospice care reflected. All 17 years when I worked at my first organization, and no one wanted to talk about it, and I found myself throughout the years falling in love with death. And I started really looking at those who knew their time was imminent, kind of leaning in and listening to them, and the dying have become some of my greatest teachers about living. And I think, you know, it's funny because I I think about my mortality every day. I have to think about.
Yeah, I wonder if you're unique or if everybody has those little thoughts that creep in and they're like, you know, I don't,
you know, yeah, maybe I am unique. But I just feel like, you know, when you lean into your own mortality, you are starting to understand that it's going to end one day. Right. And when something is going to end, you tend to want to appreciate the now. And so the dying have taught me really what matters most in life. And it has nothing to do with money or material things. It's about connection. It's about connecting with one another. And they, you know, the dying, they tend to measure time differently than us mere mortals, because you know, they tend to measure time not by length but by depth. And I wanted to do that. I so wanted to really look at my own life and how do I measure my own life with the depths of people that I allow to enter my life. You know, I'm not a person that likes to waste a lot of time. I'm in a doctorate program. I'm working full time, and I'm still continuing to do, you know, the podcast and write the book about the tour, even though the tour ended, because of COVID. But I feel like there's so much more to do. And, you know, I was telling someone today, he's like, you know, you're on a mission. And I was like, yeah, my mission is to radically change how people live and die in Denver now. And how do I get them to engage with their own mortality to bring more awareness to the present moment, and relationships. You know, I'm really close to a cousin of mine, and she's like my mom. She's about 20 years older than me. She's like my mom, sister, best friend, all tied up into a bow. And, you know, we act up and we're crazy together, and people come up to us in restaurants and like, you guys must have gone to college together. And of course she loves that because she's 20 years old.
That makes her day.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, what people don't understand is that we have not always had good times. We have had hard times that we've had to work through them to get to this place. And that's the beauty of a relationship is
Absolutely.
the hard times and choosing to make and moving through them.
Absolutely.
And that's where I feel the dying has taught me a little bit about that, because you know, they're so wanting to hold on to things that are precious, and I don't think that anything is more precious than relationships with human beings. And that's another interesting thing, is that you just, these people just radically change how I live my life, and they were only in my life for a small amount of time. And so
Right.
it makes me excited to turn the corner to see who's around it who might just change my life again.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so it makes it sort of an adventure. And I think that's what J.K. Rowling said, something about, for a well-organized mind, death is the next great adventure. And I was working and talking to some medical students, and I said, what if we have it wrong? You know, what if death is the beginning and birth is the ending? You know,
I mean,
and
did they just scratch their heads and they're like,
well, of course, you know, I'm always joking about death and dying, and I'm
yeah,
always I think it's a humorous subject. I tend to embrace it fully, and I'm ready to go anytime, because I'm so looking forward to people who have long been gone, and who, for some reason, I keep talking about them, and I think that's why I feel that no one truly dies unless you stop talking about them.
absolutely.
You
And
know?
you and I were talking about that is, when someone passes away, or, and that's so hard for people to say die. When they die, people are so afraid to say their name, use their name, talk about them, because they're afraid that that is going to bring up hurt, grief, which is already there. But to not talk about them only expounds that grief, and to just dismiss them, that they were never there, makes things worse, for everyone.
Yeah,
And
you know, names. I I love when someone, specifically, especially a stranger, I'll get an email through my website, and they ask specifically about Rob,
mhm.
and how was that experience of, you know, being in love with someone at such a young age, and he died,
Right.
and he didn't tell me, you know,
Yes.
and the way it evolved to, for me, and that information to finally come face to face, and then tracking down his parents, um and I was already in hospice care, and it was just like, it's like, sometimes I think when you're still just for a moment long enough, your life truly does find you. And I believe Rob's story found me in order to inspire me to continue the work, because it became very personal then.
Yeah.
And you know, I tell the story in my book, and I get a lot of people, you know, daydreaming and wanting to ask questions about, you know, do you think you would have still be together if he was still alive? And I don't even know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's like I'm such a different person now, and have different, I don't, it's hard to even imagine, you know, because,
Yeah.
you know, I was so heartbroken, and I thought the boy didn't love me. And
Right.
then you find out that the boy loved you beyond what you ever imagined, and was only trying to protect you from his death. And you know, I
And
long for a conversation with him. You know, if I ever make it through the pearly gates, I'm gonna like make out with him, and then I'm gonna punch him in the face.
I mean,
I mean,
love and hate are very much connected.
well,
So,
it's I do believe he thought he was doing the right thing.
yeah.
And yet the truth, and I think that's why the truth is so important to me,
Yeah.
is we must tell people that you're dying,
Yes.
and not screw around with that last developmental stage of life. You know, I've lived in New York City for a while, and you know, I was in Wilmington when 9/11 happened, and Diane Myers uses this analogy of, you know, watching these people in the towers and the planes and the Pentagon, and at one point, you know, those individuals, when they woke up that morning, never knew they were going to face death.
No, they
But
didn't.
in the midst of this chaotic, crazy world, planes flying into towers and planes being hijacked, there's something mysterious that happened that was really relative to what people must go through when they feel like they're going to die.
Right. Yeah.
And in that most pressure filled moment of anxiety and the unknown, some of these people picked up the phone and said goodbye and I love you, and left it on the machines. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, if in that situation, in that scenario, people are doing that,
Right.
you know, what are we doing with people who are facing terminal illnesses? If
Yeah.
we're not telling them that they're dying, are we taking away the power of choice for them?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I become this warrior of, not as long as I have breath in my body. I want the truth, and I want to fight for the truth when it comes to giving those who are facing an imminent death the power to still have choice.
Yeah.
You know, I can't save you from death. We're all, I mean, I even have an expiration date somewhere on this body.
Yes,
And, you know, we all,
do.
right,
Yeah.
we all do. But we can control how and where.
Well, and that knowledge is power. And, you know, what would you have said to Rob? What would Rob have said to you if you would have both been honest? You know, what more would those people in the towers said to their families had they been given more time? And that's, you know, I want to talk about the Live Well tour in the RV.
Yeah,
So,
that's crazy. It seems like so long ago, but it just seems like so yesterday.
I know.
You know?
And for those of you who are just joining us, I'm with Kimberly Paul of Death by Design podcast and the Live Well, Die Well tour and book. And I'm Rachel Donnelly with Black Dress Consultant. So tell me, let's talk about this Live Well, Die Well and how that transitioned into this RV that became this work of art on wheels.
Well, you know, I never really wanted to, you know, people are like, that's my dream, to get an RV and to travel the world. It was never my dream. Okay. Never my dream. You know, it's like I went kicking and screaming into it. And to preference that is that, you know, I have some friends who had a book out called Driving Miss Norma, and they were floating through on their boat through Wilmington, and I was eating with them and on the boat, and they were like, what are you waiting for? You're like, why don't you get an RV and go state to state and tell your stories? And I was like, there's no way in hell I would ever do anything like that. No way. And you know,
it wasn't your dream to get the Airstream and hit the road, Thelma and Louise style?
No, never. And so that following weekend, I went to see one of my best friends from college, and she was a smoker, and I was telling her about, they told me to get an RV, and I had to double down. I said, you know, until Jesus Christ himself shows me a burning bush, I would never do anything like that. And so she's a smoker, and so we went on her front porch, and she lit the cigarette, and I'm looking over, and her neighbor is burning a bush in his front yard. And she's like, she's just like, good luck on your tour. I mean, it's just like, what? And
wow.
I was so baffled by the happenstance of everything that I walked over to the neighbor, and I was just like, hey, what are you doing? He goes, I'm burning a bush. And I was like, no. why are you burning that bush right now? And
at this moment.
yeah, like, why did we have to walk out and see you burning this bush? Because I just said something that I just don't know if I can take back. And he said this, he goes, you know what? I'm getting ready to watch the baseball game. And my wife was harping on me that I never finish doing what she's asked me to do. And so when she was harping on me, I wanted to see the baseball game. So I just grabbed some, you know, gasoline or lighter fluid, and I came out here and doused this bush, and this bush is going to die today. So I can watch the baseball game. And I was like, great. And now I think I'm going on tour. Which,
like, thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. And I do believe that we're presented opportunities, and it's up to us to take the choice and the risk. And you know, I did ask, you know, until Jesus himself shows me a burning bush, I wouldn't do it. And I felt inclined not.
Yeah.
So that's the story. But 2 weeks later, I had rented out my house and bought an RV, and I was walking my German Shepherd into in the park down the street from my house, and I got a phone call from Vermont. And of course it snows in Vermont, so I don't know anyone in Vermont. I mean, I don't know anyone. And I answer the phone and I'm like, hello. And she goes, this is Roberta from Cabot Cheese. I heard about your tour. And I'm like, tour? Like my RV? Like the tour that I'm planning right now? And she's like, yes. And I think Cabot Cheese wants to sponsor you. I'm like, me? Like, I'm thinking, have I had Cabot Cheese? Have I had Cabot Cheese? I was like, well, you have my attention. Like, I said, but you know, this is a tour about educating about death and dying. And how does cheese, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's the way I want to go. It's a glass of wine.
I mean, and a vat of cheese. That's how I want to go. I mean, so.
But she said the most profound thing. She goes, Cabot Cheese is a co-op, and we work with farmers, and we teach our children about the cycle of life because they see it, and that all life does die. And we thought we could help. And I said, yes, you can. And
oh my God.
They wrapped this 29-foot RV, and I got about 36 other sponsors to sponsor it. So, you know, when I'm driving into the RV camp on a Friday night and people are cracking open their brewskis and they see like death logos and stuff, they're just like, what in the world is she doing?
And you're literally driving the cheese wagon at this point. So, I mean.
and you know, and people would come up to me and be like, what are you doing? And I would tell them my story, and suddenly we would be around the campfire, because by telling my story, it gave them permission to tell me theirs.
Yeah.
And what the crazy thing is, the RV was brand new, and it broke down in Florida. And so I was on the I-95, pulled over, you know, 5 lanes of traffic because I'm hauling my car behind the RV, and and all the electric stopped, and I'm just like gliding myself over to the side of I-95 North, and I was like, I was so pissed off, you know. I was like, brand new, what am I gonna do? It's just me. And I was like, well, just call the tow truck driver, tow it to a Ford, and go. Guess what? You're gonna sleep in a hotel tonight with your dog. And so I did. And you know, what do you do on the side of I-95 North while you wait for the tow truck driver? You know, it's you make coffee and you watch Young and the Restless. I mean, it's like,
yes,
it's your home.
I hope you had some Cabot cheese to go with that.
Right. And about an hour later, the knock on the door, and I opened it up, and this big burly mechanic guy was crying. And I was like, holy crap, are you broken down too? Yes. And he goes, no, I just recently lost my grandmother. And I guess the logos on the RV brought him back. And so I invited him in, and he sat down, and for the next 30 minutes, he told me how his grandmother became his mother and raised him. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I got my car hooked off of the RV, and he put the RV on the tow truck, and I followed him. And the whole time that I was following him, I was just thinking about that story that he shared.
Yeah.
It's like everyone has a story. Yeah. And so when we got to the Ford dealership, I gave him a Sharpie, and I said, "Can I take your mother's story with me?" And he climbed the back of my RV and wrote a note to his mother. And what occurred is, I didn't think it was the beginning of anything, but when the tour was stopped because of COVID, I had almost 500 messages on top of that RV that I took with me. And a lot of people are like, "Weren't you lonely all out there by yourself?" And sometimes I was, and I would take a candle and lay under the stars and on top of the RV and light the candle and realize that I'm never alone. That I'm with people all the time who have opened their hearts and souls and told me their story, and they know I won't look away. And that's really important, because I can't fix it. I often say, "Man, that sucks." And people are like, "You know what? That's probably the best thing that
anybody has ever said to
because me." They're like, "I'm so sorry." And it's like, don't be sorry. That was my son. He was just tragically killed in a car accident. And it's amazing, the relationships and the people that I met along the way. And some of them are still in my life. And I would give out my phone number. I would give it out to anyone, like, text me, call me. And there's still, you know, I think I was in Vermont, driving through Vermont, and I got this text from a number that was not plugged in my phone. And it said, "Hey, what state are you on? Tow truck driver." And I was like,
oh,
wow. You know, it's like, it's like we have an opportunity to really engage and connect with individuals. And if I had stayed pissed off that the RV was broken down, I might have missed knowing a beautiful human being who started this legacy of writing names on top of the RV.
Which was story one of 500 to come. So you're talking to the tow truck driver, you're talking to the checkout guy at the grocery store, just random people about death every day.
And we're finding that we're laughing about it. Humor is really important. And I feel like, you know, my father and my grandmother, they're funny people, and they're so funny and dry-witted that they can deliver a joke and not crack a smile. And you're like, "What did you just say? What was that?" And I've always been raised like that. And how do you inspire people to fall in love with their own mortality, to really reverse and ask them to examine how are they living? And that's what the dying did for me. They inspired me to go on I was planning on driving to 49 states, because you can't drive on RV to Hawaii. And COVID stopped it at 46. And about that time, my father was diagnosed with leukemia. And I drove across the United States in this RV, and it was only truckers on the road. It was so quiet because everybody was shut down, and truckers would help me. They helped me through the Wyoming mountains with this blizzard. And so there's just so many people that have made the tour possible, that I do plan on finishing the last 5 states, but I don't think I'll drive to them. I'll fly.
Let's not drive to the 50th. Let's leave that to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so, you know, you're still going to try to get those last 5 states, but then let's talk about what's next for Kimberly Paul.
I'm always
And
scheming on something
you're
because,
always scheming something.
yeah,
So
you know,
this is, let's talk about why wait. I want to tell everybody about why wait. And if you're just joining us, we're making up our own rules tonight. This was an Instagram live that was supposed to start at 7. It is 8:09 and we are just, I don't even know where we are in our agenda, but
well,
we're
and it's just
here.
6 o'clock my time. So,
Oh, that's true. That's true. Kimberly's ready to party in Denver.
yeah.
But I'm Rachel Donnelly with Black Dress Consultants. We have Kimberly Paul from Death by Design and the Live Well, Die Well tour. And let's talk about why wait. What's next and why wait?
Yeah. You know, I really have thought a long time of how the dying have been my greatest teachers, and I feel like that I want to share that. And so I why wait? It goes back to that question, what are you waiting for?
Right.
And you know, this is going to be a pod docu-series that I'm going to be journeying with people who are facing their end of life, and possibly doing some of their bucket list stuff. And when you're facing end of life, the bucket list changes. And so, you know, at the end of June, Eric, a very new and cool friend and family member, he has ALS and he's in hospice care, and he would raise money for ALS by skydiving. And he asked me, because he can't skydive anymore, he's lost all of his mobility, and he can only move his neck, and he said, will you jump for me? And I said, Eric, you know, I'm scared of heights.
Can we ask somebody else? Anybody?
But you know, what do you do when a dying man asks you to do something?
You
do it. And yet he's still contributing to life as my teacher, pushing me outside of my comfort zone. And I thought the least I could do was get 600 people to donate $10 because he's going to be 60, and to donate $6,000 for his local chapter for ALS. And you know, within 7 days, I believe we're up to like $1,300, and I think we're going to be able to meet that goal. And we'll descend on Hartford, Connecticut, and my producer, and I'm trying to get a co-host to do this with me, and to really engage with conversations, and how beautiful they can be, and then jump out of a plane.
I mean, yeah, that's perfectly logical to me. So
it's insane. I'm trying not to think about it. I told everybody, I said, if you're jumping with me, you have to jump first because I might puke. And I don't want you to be covered with my puke. And
exactly.
We go down.
Everybody, go before me.
You know, I was talking to Eric on Zoom the other day, and he has a caregiver now. He's married, 3 kids, and he said, look, Kimberly, I must concede this. I want you to promise me that you will still jump and you will still come to my birthday party even if I'm not here. And I heard his caregiver say, hey, be positive. And Eric said, I am positive, but I'm also realistic. And I said, Eric, if you're not there, I will take your ashes with me and jump out of the plane. And he's like, yeah, that would be fabulous. But it is this, it's really hard to fall in love with someone who's dying. You know what I mean? But I do, and it's so simple, and they're so vulnerable and authentic, and I'm just striving to incorporate that in my own life. And he is my teacher, and even though he is dying, he is living boldly. And
Yes,
that's the thing about the tour is I found more people facing end of life that were living boldly, and more people like us who don't have a serious illness dying a slow death because they're so unhappy with their own circumstances.
Exactly.
And it just came to me that, you know, this pod docuseries, like, what are we waiting for? Why are we waiting? You know, why are we waiting to retire to go on that European trip? You know, it's these things that I want to challenge people to do now, because that's the adventure.
It absolutely is. So if someone wants to support you in jumping out of this plane, how do they do that?
You know, what I'll do is, since this is Instagram, I will put the link within my bio, and you can, and I ask only $10. I really want 600 people, but so many people are so generous that they started doing 25. I think I only have about.
I think I broke the rules. I gave 25.
I know. It was just amazing, the generosity, and those who are donating are going to get the opportunity to jump out of the plane with me, because we're going to record this and make this a pod docu-series. So this whole weekend with Eric, at the end of June, will be in like a 5 to 6 episode that you'll actually see what the $10 can do. And I say that because, you know, collectively we can do so much more than individually. And I feel like we're here to connect. So why not open the door and let people truly be a part of it?
Absolutely.
I mean, I want people to fall in love with Eric too. And yes, he is going to die, and I will be at his funeral, but in the meantime, he's living, and I don't want to worry about his death until I have to. And so I'm so fortunate, and I feel like sometimes the luckiest person in the world to be exposed to these individuals. And you know, I'm looking at my whiteboard here that I have five things. Another episode is my friend Jeremy in Canada. He makes caskets, like wooden coffins, and he's converting them into bookshelves so people can use their coffin while they're still living. And I said, Jeremy, why don't I come to Canada and make my casket? And he's like, do it. And so I'm going to make my casket where I will be laid to rest, and it'll be in the corner of my office, and I'm going to get a burning tool. So when I have dinner parties, people can like write stuff, and then fully, when I do die, I will be surrounded by those who were in my life for a short amount of time, a long amount of time, and who were exposed to bringing really death out of the closet.
Wow. Death out of a closet. I mean, I don't know how we sum it up any better than that. But you're right. And I love what you're doing. I love what you've done. I have just enjoyed the heck out of our conversation tonight. I feel like you and I could talk for hours. And I hope that you'll come to the ATL so we can somehow figure out how to incorporate all this.
I'm really excited about coming to Atlanta and working with you and Ashley and Love Not Lost, and really putting how grief can really inspire you to do something that you never thought you would. And these stories, these are ordinary people doing freaking extraordinary things.
Extraordinary things, yes.
And I love that.
If we can, you know, have any message to anyone tonight, it's why wait? Why
have
wait
the conversation?
Have the conversations. It is a hard conversation, but my God, it'll be such a good conversation.
Yeah, and if you need help, my friends created a deck of cards called the Death Deck.
Yes, I love that.
And they're amazing.
They're so good. They're so
good. It's
good.
like $25 on Amazon. You're going to be supporting, a hospice social worker and Lori was husband passed away and she's a comedian, so they came together. And so it'll make you laugh, but also make you cry too. It's how do we ask these questions and begin to truly understand what people want? And you have to have the conversation.
You have to but with humor. Laugh at death.
Fall in love with death, because it will radically change how you live. And that's the thing. Fall in love with your own mortality, because it makes this moment very, very important, and more important, because who knows, you might be the last person I talk to.
I mean, you might. So you heard it here, folks. Fall in love with your own mortality. If you want to follow Kimberly, she's at Death by Design Podcast. On Instagram, on Facebook. You can also check out deathbydesignpodcast.com.
It's actually deathbydesign.com.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where you'll see my TED Talk and my podcast
and then
things.
You're gonna share the link for people to support you jumping on the plane. Okay.
Yeah, and also, if anyone listens and they have a story, that's who I want to talk to. I want to talk to the pioneers in this field, but I also think that everyone has a story, and we've got to keep continuing to put a face to that story, because all of us have been through loss and grief, and it's time to really embrace it. And like I said, fall in love with it.
Fall in love with your own mortality. I love it. All right, Kimberly, this has been amazing. I think that this is only the beginning for you and me. And
I know, right?
Thank you so much. You know what? We were late, but this has been amazing. Some things are just better when they're late and organic.
Well, I think of it like this, maybe there were some people that joined that wouldn't be able to join if we were on sooner. So I just believe in kismet, and
I do too.
So it is what it is.
Somehow you and
But thank you for popping my cherry. I'm not a virgin anymore.
You are welcome. That is my gift. Hey, that is the gift that keeps on giving.
You have no idea.
Kimberly, everybody follow her at Death by Design, and she's going to share this link for Eric. And
help me jump out of a plane. And if I puke, you will hear it. I really am committed to not editing. I want people to feel like they're there with me.
Oh my God! And if you puke, I want to see the full scale video. I cannot wait for this.
Oh man!
OMG!
The life I lead. The life I lead. Hey, thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this. And it's just been, so many people are doing so much beautiful work, and you're among that family of mine. And so continue to do your hard work too. And thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone fall in love with your own mortality, and we will talk